All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, Brandon Ayuk that we're 2 days away from the start of the NFL draft. We're seeing smoke screens. We're seeing a whole bunch of talking. I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't think Brandon Ayuk will be a Pittsburgh Steeler by the start of the NFL draft. Pittsburgh has the 20th overall selection, and it's been compared a lot to the AJ Brown trade to Philadelphia from a couple of years back, where they gave up their first round pick and a third round pick to select AJ or to take AJ Brown from the Tennessee Titans, and that's kind of been the equivalent value given up for a Steelers Brandon Ayuk trade. One day you read this, one day you read that. It all's conflicting. And we're just going to kind of talk about that in today's video. A couple of new reports, a couple of new news. This is definitely our last Steelers video before the NFL draft. So welcome back to the channel. Hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. We're posting a ton of Steelers videos all summer. Thank you guys so much. If we could try to get this video to 500 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. So I know a lot of this stuff is becoming redundant, but we're going to get once we get through these news, I'm going to talk about a couple of things of just existing Steelers wide receivers, particularly Van Jefferson, particularly Quez Watkins, Cordell Patterson, and Calvin Austin. So we saw this from Ian Rappaport yesterday. The question really is, does Brandon Ayuk want to stay in San Francisco with a team that's awesome and will probably be very good for a long time? Are they going to pay him the most in the NFL? Maybe not. They got a good team. They want to keep it together. But would it be enough to keep him? Rappaport said, I'm leaning more as of now of him potentially staying, but this story has not been written fully at all quite yet. So Pittsburgh has actually a decent amount of draft picks. They've got 4 in the top 100 here. You've got round 1, pick 20, round 2, pick 51, and then 2 third-round draft picks. And, something I've been saying in a lot of these videos is not only do you have to give up some draft capital, right? Once again, similar experience, A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles. They parted away with their first-round pick and later their third-round pick that was ended up being 101 in that year's draft class. So theoretically, pick 20 and pick 98 in the third round could be enough to land Brandon Ayuk. And I've been saying either way, I think you make a move for that, because more likely than not, you're actually probably going to get some type of 5th round selection, 6th round pick, even if it's a 7th round pick in return for Brandon Ayuk as well. But the big knock is that they're going to have to pay him $25 million a year. I don't think San Francisco is going to pay him that much money. All right. And they said they don't want to deal him away. Ayuk's friends and families have openly said that the wide receiver won't be back. Ayuk himself has called out the front office for BS comments. I don't think Brandon Ayuk is a San Francisco 49er at this time next season. I really don't. We heard this the other day. My understanding is that the Steelers placed a phone call a few weeks ago and were told by the 49ers, we're not trading the guy. But you see that all the time. Like recently, Justin Fields. I heard all year, Ryan Poles, no interest trading Justin Fields. Next day, bang, he's a Pittsburgh Steeler, right? So my thing is this. Pittsburgh has a couple of needs. They have a couple of holes. The center position, first and foremost. And, every time I hop on these Steelers videos and I say, theoretically, you could trade away your first round pick and a third round pick and still have round 2, pick 51 to select your center, like probably Zach Frazier. You'd still have a third round pick, probably pick number 84, where you could select a tackle. You could select a cornerback. And then in the 4th round, you can take another high upside wide receiver. And I don't think Pittsburgh has enough holes at the cornerback position. For example, we're hearing Tony Pauline, there we go, says that the Pittsburgh Steelers love Quinyon Mitchell and that they're hoping to move up for him, but the Philadelphia Eagles are doing the same. Quote unquote, I'm told the Steelers and Broncos are talking trade, as Pittsburgh is another team that is targeting Mitchell and would move up in the draft for him. I don't think the cornerback is a huge pressing need. I don't think they have any defensive pressing needs. Cornerback room, Joey Porter Jr., intriguing rookie season, right? They traded Deontay Johnson for Dante Jackson from the Carolina Panthers. You also have Darius Rush. I know they need more help at cornerback, but I don't think they're going to trade up in the first round to select him. Once again, I know they need another center, or they need a center. They could use some offensive tackles, whatever. when I look at the wide receiver room, I'm not sold, but let's just play devil's advocate and the most likely scenario because it is the Pittsburgh Steelers and they don't really make moves like the Brandon Ayuk trade. I also saw a report recently that Tyler Boyd could potentially, after the draft, if no team is willing to pay him what he wants to be paid, he could end up ultimately landing in Pittsburgh. That would work out for everybody because Pittsburgh's got like a little bit over $8 million in cap space. And if you can pay him that for a year or whatever and draft a rookie wide receiver, that's a lot better than it stands right now. But as their roster currently is, George Pickens, right? And I don't want to count out Pat Freiermuth. I don't want to count out Jalen Warren, even Darnell Washington, but just the wide receiver room in general. You've got star wide receiver, at least rising star wide receiver in George Pickens. Right behind him, still kind of trying to figure out wide receiver 2, Van Jefferson. Now, the reason Van Jefferson's interesting to me is because in his second season, he had almost 900 receiving yards with the Los Angeles Rams. But last year, he spent most of the season with the Atlanta Falcons, where Arthur Smith, the new Steelers offensive coordinator, was the head coach. My if factor in that equation is he had like 110 total receiving yards in the 12 games he played for Atlanta. So is Arthur Smith really going to utilize him? Is he really going to use him? Is he really going to make the roster? I think most likely. But as far as actual impact goes, I think it would be very similar to what Allen Robinson gave you last year. Quez Watkins. We've talked about Quez a couple of times on this channel where he's more interesting too because he had a really good season before A.J. Brown came to Philadelphia. And then in the past 3 seasons, he's dealt with just a lot of hiccups, a lot of miscues, a lot of dropped passes, some turnovers that just did not help Philadelphia. So he's been trending downhill the last couple of years, just like Van Jefferson. So to put all of my eggs in at least either of those baskets, I don't feel all that confident or comfortable with. Now, Calvin Austin's interesting because he has crazy speed. We saw it in, game 2 or game 3 where he broke out for that big time touchdown catch. After week 5, Calvin Austin was unutilized in every way, shape, or form. His snap percentage was 20%. He was on the field for 20% of offensive plays, whether it was with Matt Canada, whether it was with the interim head coach or offensive coordinator. Calvin Austin wasn't utilized ever after week 5. He had 1 catch in that postseason game against the Bills, but before that, his last catch went all the way back to December 3rd. So it's yeah, I'm hopeful for Calvin Austin. I hope Arthur Smith utilizes him. I think there's high upside in Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins. But if Pittsburgh either doesn't trade for Brandon Ayuk or they don't pick up Tyler Boyd, oh my goodness, I'm losing my voice here. I don't feel great with George Pickens and a rookie wide receiver. I just don't. I don't think that moves the needle. You went out there, you picked up Russell Wilson, you traded for Justin Fields, you're being aggressive, you're making all these moves. I would lean into that edge. So that's why I would trade a first-round draft pick for Brandon Ayuk. That's it. That's the last time we're going to talk about this unless he actually gets traded to Pittsburgh. So hit that like button, hit that sub button, and more importantly, let me know your thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver room